whether the protest establishes probable cause to believe that a violation of election law or irregularity or misconduct has occurred. If you determine that one or both of those requirements are not met, then the board should dismiss the protest. If you determine that they are both met, then you will schedule a more full, complete hearing to review the evidence and make a decision based on the protest. To determine whether the protest substantially complies, as I mentioned, with the form and whether there's probable cause. Probable cause means that a non-technical probability that incriminating evidence is involved. Probable cause does not require showing that the protest be correct or more likely true to be false. Rather than probable cause is a relatively low bar that simply indicates the possibility of a protest truthfulness. The state statute we mentioned earlier is 163-57, and it says that the place shall be considered the residence of a person in which that person's habitation is fixed, into which, whenever that person is absent, the person has the intention of returning. Some case law gives a little more guidance on that. It is frankly a complicated determination. There's case law that says if someone has abandoned their home, they've made a present intention to make that new place their home, and they have no intention presently to leave the place they are currently, then that new place is their residence. The person's intent does matter, but it's one factor among several factors. The determination depends upon no one factor or combination of circumstances, but upon the whole taken together, showing a preponderance of evidence in favor of some particular place outside the original residence or domicile. So today, I believe your job, your role, your duty is to consider the information on the protest that has been filed with you only, frankly, not to consider outside evidence, things you may have heard, things you may have seen on TV or online, but to consider the two protests separately that have been filed with this board to determine whether you believe there's a probable cause that a violation has occurred. And if you do, then you would schedule a more formal hearing. If you don't believe it's met that standard, then you would dismiss the protest.
If y'all will continue in the paperwork to where the filing, candidate's filing was done, and then there's a paper clip that has a 1 on it. And that's the first protest hearing, and then there's a paper clip that has a 2 on it. And so right now, you're gonna need to deal with number 1, okay? All right. The information that's on the protest, y'all have a copy of it. The form, it tells about the form being completed in reference to, and it has the validity that it has been. The protester is Ms. Joyce Arnett Jones, a Nash County resident, and all the information from 1 through 3 seems to be in order. Number 4 is that Williamson's candidacy invalid, registered in county he is not resident of. Okay. Page 2 of that complaint. Candidacy invalid, resident Pinefield in Nash County. Number 7, Edgecombe County Board of Election has documents. Number 8, invalid registration. The relief that's being requested, they have several, but other was checked. Y'all with me so far?
Yes, sir.
Everybody with me? You on 2?
Yes.
You on 2, you should be on 1.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. It's okay. 1, okay? And now I'm on page 201. I think I'm at the bottom there, right there, okay? Number 9, it says other, and number 10, what relief do you seek? Other. To declare Mr. Williams' candidacy as invalid as he registered in a county he is not a resident of, and refer criminal violation to State Board of Election and SBI for prosecution. Okay? Number 11, there was assistance none. 12 on down to 14. list all affected parties, including their service address. All citizens in Rocky Mount eligible to vote. And the protester certification information, and on the back, that's where she certified it, and my staff notarized it. And the last page of that is council of record addendum. There was none, not applicable. And then there was some documentation that Ms. Jones provided. Tax info, City of Rocky Mount, about the electricity last active service and the date of being 1/20/2017. Building permits, I guess, showed to be none because there's nothing up there. Then there's communications. Y'all with me? I ain't trying to carry y'all fast, but.
I'm with you.
Okay. Communications, event report. I guess this is just a timeline of information that have followed 1611 Hargrove Street. And I say I guess because I don't really know what that pertains to. And that was a front and back page. So the back page, I've copied that, so you have it, and that's an animal case of 1611 Hargrove Street. And that's the info. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yes, it says
Okay.
right at the top, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and that's the information that's been provided for that protest information. Mr. Peterson read y'all the law, the procedures of the law. If anybody got any thought patterns, now would be the time.
One question, you have residency and domicile. What are we looking at? Residency or domicile? What is the complaint filed in that?
Are they synonymous?
They are synonymous, but
Yeah. Well,
But I don't see that on this form though, and I'm
I
not
don't see
sure,
where-
does that pertain to this form?
The complaint, Mr. Wood, I believe says residency.
Right,
To answer
okay.
your question.
So, the definition in the book for residency is different than domicile.
Well, the case law does say they're synonymous.
It does.
It also draws somewhat of a distinction, but it's between the two. Do you have a particular question about that?
I just want to know which one we were dealing with. I know they're synonymous, but then I look down and I see a distinction between the two.
yeah.
And the complaint says residency.
And I think based on the information that we have, we ought to be dealing with what's on her form.
Right,
And
resident.
yes, and I think that Mr. Peters wanted y'all to be clear that there are a lot of outside information about this that does not pertain to this filing.
Right,
Okay.
but we're dealing with
What's on the
residency now.
Yes, sir, and again, the case law does say, that one of the cases I quoted from earlier says that it's clear that residence, when used in the election law, means domicile, so I believe there's synonymous.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Sproul, is Mr. Williams a registered voter?
Yes, he is, Ms. Landacker. He is registered, in Edgecombe County at 1611 Hargrove Street.
Is he related to the defendant in this case?
No, to the defendant? That's the defendant, right?
Or to the plaintiff?
The protester.
Right.
Okay. I'm just, he doesn't have the same name as Bronson Williams,
But Hargrove Street
Exactly,
is
but-
Edgecombe County, that means.
Okay,
so I'm asking if
I'm
they're
sorry.
related.
that's right, yeah, Ms. Jones.
I'm
This-
sorry.
yeah, this is a preliminary hearing, and it's not debatable at this
I'm
point.
sorry.
That's okay, I just wanted you to know,
Well,
okay?
they don't act like they understand that.
I'm just asking if
I'm
Donald
sorry.
Ray Williams
Okay,
is
so-
related to
Okay.
Bronson Williams.
I don't know that.
And we don't know that either. I think what we're dealing with here is where Mr. Williams say he resides. based on the information that he had when he filed. Now, I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth. He filed a candidacy form showing that he lived at a certain address.
1611
Hargrove.
Hargrove Street.
Right.
So this is the information we are to deal with,
Absolutely.
okay? So,
And in order to file a candidacy, he has to be a registered voter.
Yes.
and he is a registered voter in Edgecombe County apparently,
Yes.
okay?
All of that information was verified on the candidacy
But I do
form.
know
Y'all,
that.
y'all got a copy of the candidacy form?
I know he is because he's the third vice for the Democrat. But anyway, I do know
Okay, but what
that.
I'm saying is, y'all got a copy of his candidacy form where he filed and signed.
Notice of candidacy.
Yes, you have, it's 2 pages
Mhm.
there. He filed and signed, and the date that he filed and signed,
July.
right, all of that information. He filed and signed that information. And at that time, my staff and my office was required to verify what was his voter registration. And the only way we can verify voter registration is to go to our SEAM system, look in there and see if that person is registered, not registered. They could be removed from a status, or they could be, when they're not there with.
To federal elections.
Yeah, right, okay, very good. So, with that in mind, when we verified that information, he was registered in Edgecombe County at
Yeah.
1611 Hargrove Street. And just like all the candidates anywhere else, I don't know anybody that would go out to verify the residence. I don't,
That's not usual practice.
I don't think so.
Well,
Fine, you got a bit now.
Okay. What she has bought was voter registration information, if y'all wanna pass that down. That's all.
okay.
It's all the same form.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure everybody got one, the speech,
And we do not have anything showing that he has changed his address
not one,
anytime over the last couple of years.
no ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Peters, question please. You said that we are supposed to base this on the information that is here in this form.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we take into consideration anything that's in the law?
This is a law, and I don't wanna answer the question before him, but this is a law,
Okay,
okay? And the reason I say that, Ms. Bland, is because he filed this notice of candidacy with the information that he had, he filed that, that's what we have, okay? Then the protest was filed based on the information that we have. And so, based on that information, the protest was filed on a residency. Okay,
okay,
and I'm sorry, Ms. Peach.
thank you.
Does that answer your, you should certainly consider the law. Your job, I think, is to apply the facts to the law. But when I say what you should consider today, the facts you should consider today are the facts as the elections director tells you regarding his registration and the facts alleged on the protest, not outside facts like what you may have read or seen somewhere else.
Okay. So from
That's what I
what,
meant by that.
well, excuse me. So from what I'm seeing, the information presented on the notice of candidacy and the protest form, as far as address is concerned, they are the same. 1611 Hargrove Street? That's what we're dealing with, right?
And we, as far as I'm concerned, we have no knowledge that this is not actually his physical address. We don't have it.
Well, Mr. Peters read another statement that he said, Mr. Peters, read that statement
Intent
again.
to
Yeah, let him read it again, because for our purpose, our benefit, okay? Because I want you to be clear, and I want you to be comfortable with the decision that you made, you know, and the only way we can do this is dealing with what the law tells us that we have to deal with. You know, when you started out, no, when you started out with. Right there, yes, residency. He read that, he said statute. The place shall be considered the residency of a person in which that person's habitation is fixed, and to which, whenever that person is absent, that person has the intention of returning. And they gave you the law, GS 163-57.
So that's the statute, and the rest is case law that follows there.
Right.
So if I'm please help me here. If I'm understanding this correctly, we're dealing with address and this residency definition. Does he have intention of returning?
That's not a question that I can answer.
But the reason I'm asking.
I know that, but I'm saying,
The reason I'm asking the question is because it's here. And it does relate to the candidacy form.
Yes, ma'am, I don't believe that's a question anybody here can answer today.
Right, okay, I just wanna make sure I'm on the right track as far as thinking. Okay.
Okay, would it help if this list of answers about residency, if we place them beside the complaint and answer the question and question each one of those?
I don't know
You know what I'm saying?
I-
Does this complaint fit what we have to look at in this general schedule?
I'm not sure if you're asking me or Mr. Sproul. I'm not sure I can tell you what will help or not help you.
It might make things go a little faster. If we go down and we say, okay, this relates, this doesn't, and so forth, to the complaint.
And I'm not sure if you're asking me, I'm not sure
Oh,
what list you're
I'll ask
referring
you.
to.
Because.
Okay, on
How many is it?
I'm reading out of the book, page 122, 163A, dash 842. There's a list of answers that are things that we need to answer with this complaint. Does this address all of these things?
And again, I don't know, I'm not looking at the list, and I'm not you. I think the job today is to determine whether you think there's probable cause to have another hearing, a full hearing. Your job today, I don't think, is to determine what you think his residency is. It's whether you think
Exactly.
the protest that has been filed shows probable cause to have a more full hearing.
And if you read through those, Mr. Wooten, as you have read through, I think all come back to exactly the same information that
does.
he's already provided.
It does, yeah.
You know, and I think the main thing is that, the question is, in reference to, is that when he filed that, candidacy form, he listed 1611 Hargrove as his address.
Right.
Okay? And based on the law that Mr. Peters provided us, that information is telling you what the status of this protest is. The protest is disputing his residency.
Okay,
And that's all that
Yes.
that Mr. Peters said we should be dealing with here,
okay.
is that the residency has been protested against, okay?
And the protester in evidence has shown that there are no building permits indicating anything going on, and that electricity was last active in
That doesn't have anything
2017.
to do
Right,
with
and
this.
I don't personally see how that does anything with determining what the address was when he filed and what he lists as his address. Well, right, and who can determine his intent?
Okay,
There is a physical structure
Well,
there.
I-
Yes.
Okay.
on number 4 of the
Okay,
protest
so
scope.
let me look at it, okay, number 4,
Mhm.
okay, yes, protest scope,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Williamson's candidacy invalid, registered in county he is not resident of. But he was registered.
He is,
Correct.
Yes,
it
ma'am,
looks like he's
And
still
valid.
registered in
Ma'am?
Edgecombe.
And valid.
yes, ma'am, yes, good question, yes,
And the structure's in the county.
yes. Hargrove Street is in Edgecombe County.
Okay.
However, this board plans to proceed, I'd like for you to make a statement about what you're ruling on, so that it is clear and nobody has any question about what is being ruled.
Okay.
Well, based on information before me and before you all, this form shows that Mr. Williams' address is 1611 Howard Road, and that's what's being contested. But according to our records here at the Board of Elections, it's showing the same thing, and that he is a registered voter in Edgecombe County. What is your pleasure with this? Because I have no way of knowing whether because I do know one of the stipulations in one of the general statutes deals with whether he has intentions of returning or going back, but I don't have any proof that it's not there, but whatever it is.
There was General Statute 163-57, that was on the very first page.
Right.
Protest to candidates' residency.
Thank you.
And that was the information that was provided.
So what is your pleasure, board members?
Well, we know he is registered in Edgecombe County at this address. And the only thing presented that disagrees with that is the actual presence of use of the building. So it really depends on what the law considers the most important. From what we read, it was intent. And that is something we can't address because we don't have a person here to ask.
Are we dealing with probable cause, Mr. Peterson?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's kind
So
of.
the,
I would suggest that we have no cause to question his residency based on the information that we have.
I agree. It's,
Okay.
Let's don't agree, let's put it into the law.
Okay, this is what,
And
we're dealing,
Oh,
sorry,
no,
Mr.
you go right,
I
no,
don't
go
mean to
right.
interrupt, but as a reminder, there are two protests. I think each needs to be addressed
They
separately.
know that.
Okay, so we're gonna
Yes,
deal with-
financial, yes.
So we're gonna deal with
We're dealing with number
resident,
one, y'all remember? That was number one.
that's
Number-
residency,
the number one was the one we just read.
that's right.
Okay?
Should I state my,
Yeah, you can say number
Yeah.
one protest, yes, sir.
okay.
Oh, I got you.
Based on the information that we have, I have no reason to believe that he doesn't have a residence at, what is it, 1611 Hargrove?
Yes, sir.
yes.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
And that's the first protest.
Okay, protest.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, was that a motion?
Was that a motion? Was that a?
It can be, yeah.
Okay.
What was the motion? I think the motion needs to either be to dismiss the protest or to schedule
A
more
hearing.
Okay, I'll rephrase it. Based on the information that we have, I make a motion that we dismiss this preliminary hearing on complaint number 1. Is that clear enough?
Mr. Wooten, not to try to put words in your mouth, but this is a preliminary protest hearing.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, that's okay, I just want
What
to.
did I leave? I left out protest.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a motion? A second.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we dismiss protest 1, preliminary hearing. I don't think I said that right.
No.
All in favor of the, no by voting sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we dismiss protest 1 of the preliminary hearing. So now we're moving on to protest 2.
Yes. Everybody got a copy of number 2?
Yes.
Okay. This protest 2 was filed by Ms. Joyce Arnett Jones, Nash County residents. She provided, everybody got it?
Yes.
Okay. She provided information for 1, 2, 3, and in the protest scope, number 4. Ms. Armstrong, you want to read that?
Bronson Williams lost an election by 2,000 and more votes, but there is to be a runoff because opponent Sandy Robertson did not win by 50% plus 1 vote. He had 48 8/10. My protest, he should never have been on the ballot, Bronson Williams. The address he gave at voter registration
Get to it, take it out.
is an abandoned house, has had no upkeep. It is in his father's name. The tax office shows no taxes paid since 2017. There's been no electric service there since January 20th, 2017, per the City of Rocky Mount Utilities. Mr. Williams claimed he was making improvements at the home. The city shows no building permits issued at that address. Number 7, City Tax Office. That's individuals or witnesses to substantiate the above facts. And the Rocky Mount Public Utilities. Number 8, candidate must reside, live at the address he put on registration to run for mayor. And number 9, what effect do you believe the facts alleged in response to prompt 6? Uncertain, but this is a violation and federal offense. So what relief do you seek? To declare Mr. Williams' voter registration as improper and void. No one assisted in the preparation of this document. No one has influenced the Jones to do, Ms. Arnett Jones to do this. And she has not, according to this, received any financial benefit or promise in money for filing this. So all the affected parties, this will be the entire city of Rocky Mount citizens are affected. He should not have been on the ballot if this address had been checked. And is it anything else?
The last page is certification information.
Right, okay. So, and this is dated 10/20, it came to this office 10/25/2019 at 2:58 p.m. What disposition do we make of protest to? We can go back through it again and make sure we didn't miss anything.
I will ask again, Mrs. Brewer,
Yes, ma'am.
was he a registered voter in Edgecombe County?
Yes, ma'am. And again, for y'all benefit, the candidacy notice that he filed that y'all have a copy of, I notarized that document. And my notary is notarizing that I was able to check his voter registration information in our system, that he was a registered voter. And that was information that we do when a person filed. Not just like anybody else that filed, we check and do the same procedures.
Now, I finished reading this, but these are attachments to the protest, that's all.
Yeah, same attachment that you saw in the first.
That's okay.
And again, just in the reading, number 10 is a request information that the protester has requested.
To declare the registration as improper,
That's what she asked.
that's as relief or what?
Yeah, that's what she asked. I just wanted to make sure y'all saw what she was in number 10.
Yeah, that's what.
And the reason that Mr. Peters thought that we would take these protests, because she did file 2 protests at the same time. They were simultaneously filed.
Okay. Now, I'm looking at number 8. Cite any statute or case, administrative rule or decisions, an election policy or procedure that supports your claim set out under prompt 5. And it's written, candidate must reside, live at, address he put on registration to run for mayor. Now, I know we've already resolved protest 1. So here, that word, the candidate must reside at the address he put on the registration. Do we go back to that word residency again?
I think we need to determine whether it's a true statement or not according to.
Because I'm just listening,
Not
I haven't
according to
read
the
that.
rules.
I haven't read that in my law. Unless I misunderstood.
I'm sorry, are you asking a good question?
Yes.
I guess it's a
Well-
cool way of asking, but, yeah.
The statute we discussed earlier, is 163-57, says that place shall be considered the residence of a person in which that person's habitation is fixed, and to which, whenever that person is absent, that person has the intention of returning. And there are some conditions subject to that.
Okay, thank you.
So, that's not the case. Here. we can't read anything into this except what it is. And I want to make sure that I don't do that.
I make a motion that protest number 2 be dismissed.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that protest 2 be dismissed. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Protest 2 of the preliminary hearing is dismissed.
Who seconded that?
I did.
John.
Mr. Chairman, board members, I have no other information.
Okay. I would like to thank you, Mr. Peterson, I'm sure, and the board as well, for assisting us in this matter. Okay, so the hearing is this, let me get my,
That's mine.
okay, I just want to check to see what was there. This is,
You need a motion to adjourn?
yes, let's do that, please.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we stand adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And thank you to Mr. Sproul for, your many hours of trying to get all this together for us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Betsy.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Bessie. So we can go there?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, how y'all doing?
Yeah, he can sign it.
What, this right here? This right here?
You can talk to the chairman for that.
Oh, I just wanted to find out her name.
Oh,
Gloria Linebecker,
I know I said it, where would I have?
but it's L-Y-N.
Oh, why?
You want one of these
D-A-K.
copies? Do you have another copy of it?
L-K-E-R.
D-A-K-E-R.
sir, would you like to sign it?
She's asking
Oh,
you won't be
I get you.
long.
Right, okay, oh yeah, okay, before I go.
All we gotta do is just make a copy.
Right.
What you want? Copy of what we have, but not all these
Oh,
pages.
no, I just want the protest.
Okay.
Protest.
What's that, Kim?
All right, how you doing? I need